Hello and welcome back. I am Arumba. Thank you for joining me. Let's play some more of our tutorial campaign with FilthyRobot in EU4. How's it going?
Doing well, man.
Good. You ready to win this war?
Yeah, I'm ready to. I'm kind of curious to see how it turns out now. So now we've crushed him. We've crushed his war. We haven't taken over anything yet. We've just killed his army, right?
Yep. Notice that dialogue there at the bottom. That war score.
20%.
We're at 20% war score. If you click on that thing and hover over the number, you can actually see exact breakdown of how we got to 20 war score. We got 7 war score from battles. And we're currently blockading his capital. We're 13.25.
Okay.
You need war score to demand stuff, and we're going to need to siege down his capital to take that territory. So, what we can do is we can actually detach some troops to siege down Tyrone, because we have more than enough men to flank Leinster, even though he, we don't need to send all 12,000 troops down there. Okay? We gotta wait.
Okay, we're actually going to send troops down there.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're going to go kill him. We're not going to let him train more men. If we don't, he's going to merc up. See, actually, you can actually zoom really, really far in on Leinster. You see that little blacksmith hammering on a sword?
Yes.
If you hover over that, you can see a Latin medieval infantry will be fielded here on 3rd of December. So he's training troops.
Unacceptable.
He's training men. He's trying to defend his friend. So we
need to go down, burn his towns, and salt his land.
Yeah, we're going to smash his army before it gets any stronger.
Okay.
You almost always want to kill armies before you worry about sieges. But because he only has 5 troops, and because we talked briefly last episode about flanking range, we only need to send 5 infantry plus the 3 cavalry that we have, which means we have plenty of extra infantry available to lead a siege against Tyrone.
Okay.
So let's let one day pass so we can actually select our army. It's doing this weird thing where as soon as the battle ends, you have to let a day pass before it's selectable again.
We have our diplomat just sitting around. We should probably get him reassigned, right?
Yep. I was actually going to mention that. See if you noticed it. Good. All right. So who do you want to attack next? Sligo, Kildare, or Ulster? Pick your pick. Remember, Ulster is allied to England.
Okay, so we can't really fuck with Ulster then. I'd say Sligo.
Okay, go ahead and start building up a spy network against him then.
Okay, let's go ahead and... Whoa. Where is my spy network? There it is. Okay, build spy network.
Yeah.
Done.
Now, this would be an opportunity where if you really wanted to go back to privateering, we could probably do it. But again, we're going to keep our navy together just for security. Because it's a very insignificant... Let's say we're at war for 2 years, and we're losing 0.4 ducats for 2 years. That's 24 ducats times 0.4. We're talking about 10 ducats.
I like 10 ducats, though. 10 ducats isn't bad. We're only at 50 in our treasury. That's a 20% increase, right?
Yeah, and then you do that, and then something bad happens, and 3 of your ships get sunk, and there goes 60 ducats.
And then I'd just be like, why didn't you warn me, Arumba?
So you can see
when I was making these decisions.
The opportunity cost is just not really worth it. We are missing out on some power projection because we haven't actually, we're not privateering anymore. We also never did insult England, by the way. We could insult them for 5 power projection. Would you like to send England an insult in a month? All right.
Yes. Do you have one pre-crafted?
Now you need to come up with something witty. All right, let's go ahead and...
No, you're mentoring. you're tutoring on this one. This is your responsibility. What do we send in England? What normally works when you insult?
Yeah, you actually get power projection dependent upon how well you write the insult.
That would be an excellent one.
I'm just kidding. No, it's you just get a fixed 5, but it would be funny if you could do it. Anyway, go ahead and select our army that's in Tyrone. Notice that's automatically begun to siege. It's in a hostile province. It's in, it's going to try to siege stuff down.
Okay.
If you select on the province while you're doing a siege, you can see a siege interface now. The defender.
While I'm doing that.
Okay. Yeah, so you can either select the army, which will show the army, or click on the province of Tyrone.
Okay.
You see where it says defender, and there's a flag for Tyrone. He's got 1,000 in his garrison.
Yeah.
You need to have 3 times as much garrison as there is in actual fielded troops to lead a siege. So we have to have 3,000 men to maintain this siege.
Okay.
He's got defensiveness of 0.4%, which is going to increase our siege ticks. And each siege tick takes 30 days. This is going to go back to that dice roll thing we talked about in the board game type thing. So every 30 days, we're going to tick. We're going to have a siege tick. And on that siege tick, we're going to roll, in this case, a 14-sided die. Don't ask me why. It's going to be a 14-sided die. Mm-hmm. It's going to go from 1 to 14. And if you hover, you see that negative 42% in yellow?
Yeah.
Hover over that.
Yep.
It says each time a siege phase happens, a die is 1 to 14 is rolled. That roll is then added with the siege modifiers, currently -1, due to his capital fort of -1. On a natural roll of 1, the attackers will suffer a disease outbreak that reduces their numbers by 5% and does not advance the siege, mind you. And then the result of the roll are as follows. And it's actually projecting, like, if we roll somewhere between a 1, if we get a 1, we get bad. It's bad. We have a 7% chance, which is 1/14, right?
It's estimating. Okay, 7% is in the estimate of. Got it.
Yeah, because there's a 1 in 14 chance we roll a 1, a natural 1.
Yep.
If we roll and the sum is between 5 and 11, in this case we would have to roll a 6 to 12 because we have a -1 being taken off. The result needs to be between 5 and 11, which is saying there's a 50% chance we're going to get a supplies shortage. There is a 14% chance we'll do a food shortage. No chance yet for a water shortage, defender's desert, or full surrender. Now, hover...
Sorry, these are...
Yep,
I assume these were negatives. These are not negatives. These are things that can happen to the defender.
Yes, these are things that we want to have happen. We want everything except for the disease outbreak. So now go all the way onto the opposite side of this interface and hover over where that little clock is.
Yeah.
That is the current siege status. The value can range from 0 to 12. We're at 0, that's where you start. Siege status is affected by a supplies shortage will give you +1 siege status. A food shortage gives you +2. Water shortage gives you +3, and defender's desert gives you +1. So every siege tick that we experience where we actually end up getting a good number, we're going to advance our siege status, which is then going to snowball into future rolls to try to make this fort fall. Okay.
Now, were there any... So you said that we only need to leave 3,000 troops as a minimum to actually do the sieging. We need to be 3 to 1 on the size of their garrison. Does leaving troops, is there anywhere I can see this? Does leaving more troops positively impact the siege in any other way? Like, does we get more modifiers for having more troops or something? Yes,
in certain circumstances. If you leave more troops, and those troops are artillery will give you an extra multiplier, an extra phase progress modifier. You can actually see there, we've got 0 siege status, 0 from leader siege skill. Remember we talked about how our general has no siege pips. He could just have a +1 if that was what he's good at.
These are actually modifiers. Got it.
So if our leader had a siege pip and he was in charge of the siege, then we would have +1 there. Hovering over the artillery, you can see if we had 5 artillery, we could have up to a 5 bonus, but we haven't discovered artillery technology yet. We have blockaded the province already. If we didn't have the blockade in place, there would actually be an extra -2 here. Okay. It's just always -2, unless you're fighting against rebels. For some silly reason, it's -1 with rebels. I don't know why. We haven't had any rebels to deal with yet. And then if you had a higher level fort, like if you had an actual proper castle like what we have over in Lothian, then it would actually be -3 instead of -1. But he doesn't have an actual castle, it's just his capital.
Okay.
Lastly, walls breached. A natural 14 will give you a walls breached, which gives you +3 to your siege status and allows you to assault the holding instead of having to wait for it to fall naturally.
Can his garrison increase during the siege?
No. Garrison cannot recover.
So, and he has no... I assume he has to train units somewhere? Does he have to train them in the city?
He has to train troops in his own and controlled provinces. Since he has no other owned or controlled provinces, he is incapable of training an army.
Because he can't train on the city because it's besieged, and he'd have to bring it in from somewhere else.
Yep. If we leave, he'll immediately start trying to train troops.
There's no downside then to just leaving 3K here, because he can't create more troops. We're going to go and deal with his reinforcements, which are coming from his allies, and the garrison can't get bigger, and none of our troops that we leave there actually give us bonuses towards sieging faster. So the only time it would be beneficial then to leave more troops than 3K is if we rolled a natural 14, then we wanted to assault and we get a better just like roll on that. And even that probably not, because 1K is 1 pip, so 3K with 3 infantry would be 3 pips, which means the flanking's already maxed out.
You would want to have 5 infantry to flank. Well, actually, no. Yeah, no, you're right. If they have 1 infantry, yes, only 3 infantry could engage.
Okay. So there's no point in leaving more than 3 here.
Yes, there actually is, though. Notice again, if you roll a natural 1, the attackers will suffer a disease outbreak, which reduces their strength by 5% of their maximum. In this case, would
it fuck up our siege then? Because we wouldn't have 3 times?
We would have so we need to lose 2,850 troops, which is not 3 times as many as you need, so you generally want to go 1 higher. Does the siege
just end when that happens?
Nope, it just can't progress. It'll just sit and never go anywhere. So we want to go 1 higher than the requisite amount, because if we have 4,000 troops, a disease outbreak will take us down to 3,800, which is still above 3,000. And we'll never experience a roll that could possibly slow down our siege.
Got it.
So go ahead and grab the army.
Yep.
Once you have it selected, you could either click the... I don't even know where the damn button is. There's a button somewhere on here. Create new unit. It's the top right one. Or just press the B key, which is the keyboard shortcut that I've made that's better. We're going to open up this interface to reorganize the unit. Let's detach 4 regiments of infantry. Take them from the top, the most damaged ones.
Why the most damaged? Because this is still going to give us basically going to give us more than our worried number of 3,000 and by enough, and it doesn't matter. Okay, got it.
Yep, and because we don't want those infantry to be engaged in the next bit of combat, because if they were, they are at a direct representation of their strength. So an 800 regiment 800 troop regiment is going to fight at 80% efficacy versus a 1,000 strength regiment.
Okay.
Also, if they have too few troops in their regiment, they also lose some of their flanking range. So, generally speaking, you want to have fully sized regiments for combat.
Okay.
One last thing.
Close that, and I'll have those two split up.
Yep. One last thing to remember is that let's say that the Leinster army was much bigger. Let's say it was 10,000 troops. What we could do is just leave behind one infantry in Tyrone, and even though we know he wouldn't be able to siege Tyrone at all, he would
Stops
still
him from training.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but we don't need that because again, we're actually still going to deploy six infantry with 3 cavalry flanking, which is great. We're going to flank the crap out of Leinster. So go ahead.
How
and
do I tell which of my armies is sieging this right now?
Right now, they're both helping.
Okay.
If you actually click on the province, you'll see that they're being besieged by 9,138 infantry, 3,000 that. Any hostile army in the province is going to be part of the siege. So go ahead and just keep clicking until you have the larger of the 2 armies selected with the leader.
Yeah.
And then just try it. See if you can march down to Leinster. See if he's already got military access through England.
It puts a red arrow,
Yeah,
but I don't know if that means anything.
The fact that you're even able, like try right clicking on Sligo. You're going to get like a little sound alert, and it's going to say, no, you can't do that. You have no military access there. The fact that it even lets you try to go to Leinster.
We have military access through England?
Yes, and this
Why
is a very.
do we start with military access through England as Scotland?
This is a very important thing to understand about how combat works in EU4. If any person you are at war with has military access through another nation, you also have military access through that nation.
Got it. That's interesting.
So you cannot hide armies. You can't just like hide your army in some foreign power that won't give military access to the other enemy, because what's going to stop? I don't give a crap. If you give them access, I'm going to march through your lands too. So because Leinster is allied to England, and Leinster has military access through England, we have military access through England.
Okay.
So, and actually, if you right click on our country, you can actually see that has conditional military access. There's like a...
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
The army selected still.
Scotland has conditional military access through England for the following reasons. England gives access to Scottish enemy Leinster, is why we're getting the access. So, let's go around there, go down there and just beat him up. And let's go ahead and unpause. So our siege will begin. You don't have to have a leader in charge to do the siege, just the requisite number of troops. If we had a leader with siege, we would want to have that siege leader in charge, because that's literally his purpose.
We just got to pop up with gold. Is that gold?
Yeah, sure. Which one? Where?
I saw 2 yellow numbers come out, one out of the port and one out of the city in Tyrone. They popped up and moved towards my screen and disappeared rather rapidly.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead and grab the army that's in Tyrone.
Yeah.
In the center top section, below where it says like no leader, we can see here, it says Tyrone, current location. Then there's a little chest with gold in it. It says 0.3. Okay. We have 3.53 infantry regiments, which are capable of looting 0.1 ducats each. So they're going to loot.
So there's another advantage to leaving more military around them. You loot more.
Yes and no. Again, we're probably going to drain the loot out of the province altogether by the time the siege is over, and you suffer attrition while doing sieges. So having more troops than necessary causes you to kill more men. You're losing... If you hover, you see that little red... the little skull?
Yeah.
We can see we're suffering 1% attrition monthly due to attrition.
Got it.
And that's...
How do you see the total treasure? How do we know that we're going to get all of the loot out of this this area before it dies?
Okay, click on the province of Tyrone. It'll bring up the siege interface. There's now a button in the top right corner called Show Province or Select Army. Click Show Province or press the V key.
Okay.
Top left corner, below where... Just top left corner-ish, there's a big green bar. You see that?
Yep.
With the treasure chest. That's the loot bar. The loot bar is going to be equivalent to the development. So the maximum loot in this province is going to be 11 because it's an 11 development province. We haven't talked about any of this stuff yet. So much to talk about in this game. But there's currently 10.67 ducats of loot remaining. So that is...
Can we commit war crimes or atrocities in here? Like if we want to slaughter all their peasants or something, can we do that?
No, sadly. That would be fun though. But we're going to loot 0.35 every month that army is there. Okay. So... Yep, and then the same thing for the blockade. The blockade is going to block... Since we're blockading Tyrone, we're getting a very, very small amount of money. If you press F14, you can actually see how much money we got for spoils of war. We got 0.01 ducats for blockading Tyrone. It's very insignificant for blockading. Let's unpause. Let's do our next round of combat. Hopefully we roll well. Okay, we've engaged. We're in the very first phase. Here, quick little spot test. What's the first phase?
It's whatever the... There's 2 of them. There's shock and fire. And fire goes first.
There you go. Yeah, he's got it. He's learning. Fire first,
I don't
always.
remember what happens in them. I just remember that you're saying the shock is better for the cavalry.
Okay,
I don't remember what's better.
Let's briefly talk about why that's the case. Press F1 and then the comma key. Go to the military tab.
Okay.
All right, now we're going to look at the unit interface here. We got Western tech, we got Latin medieval infantry, we've got their costs, we've got their combat ability, and then you see these other columns here: fire modifier, shock modifier. Currently, our infantry have a fire modifier of 0.35 and a shock modifier of 0.5. This means that whatever dice rolls they get, the damage they inflict is going to be multiplied by this number.
So it's actually reduced.
We do less damage at the beginning of the game than we're going to do in the end of the game. Correct.
Okay.
So we're doing about a third of what we would consider to be normal. But again, this is normal, so this is actually normal. So anyway, in the fire phase, you'll notice that cavalry have a multiplier of 0. So our cavalry do nothing in the first phase of combat. They also have a multiplier of 1. So cavalry do twice as much damage as infantry do, pound for pound. If you have 1,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry, the math is the exact same. It's all based on the dice rolls.
Is the health the same for all units?
Yes. Health is just based on number of units, direct bodies in the army.
Okay. So then the only modifier that really determines the strength of these units is actually these numbers here, these 0.35s and 0.5s, because the health is identical. So it's not like a defensive roll versus an offensive roll here.
Correct. And actually that confused me for a long time when I first started playing EU4. I used to think being the defender would mean that you would use defensive pips and being the offender would be offensive pips. And this is where it gets confusing. Go ahead and click where it says Latin medieval infantry.
Okay.
Actually, unit itself. There are multiple types of units that you can choose from. Right now, we're able to choose 2 different types: the Latin medieval infantry and the halberd infantry. Notice the pips. We've got 0 fire pips. We've got 1 shock pip for the halberd infantry, 1 offensive morale pip for the Latin medieval infantry, 1 defensive morale pip for the Latin medieval infantry, and 1 offensive morale pip for the halberd infantry. So basically, the decision here is: would you rather have a defensive morale pip or an offensive shock pip? And again, 9 times out of 10, if you're new to the game, just don't mess with it. Just choose one of them. Don't worry. It doesn't matter very much. But technically speaking, if we wanted to go offensive, the halberd infantry would give us an extra +1 to all of our shock rolls, specifically for our infantry.
And you're saying, okay, I'm looking at the numbers. I see offensive shock. Okay, so that is a modifier for offensive shock. But shock's the phase that they only get 30%. No, it's the fire phase. So that's actually, it's modified to only 0.5 basically, right? Okay.
Now, I would probably...
So they are better for what we're doing. I mean, if we're fighting here offensively. So we had them now, they would be preferable to the medieval infantry because we're on the offense.
Right, but no. And see, that's where I want to make sure you don't get that part confused. The concept of offensive versus defensive does not mean you're the aggressor or the defender. It just means every individual unit. Let's do this. Grab the army, select the army, and look at the combat. Hover over any of the units themselves. Grab an infantry. Like I'm looking at the centermost infantry on our side. It says...
I can select him?
Not select, but like hover over him. Look at his tooltip. It says like Lothian's 1st Regiment, Latin Medieval Infantry, Scotland. Fire 0,0/0. Shock 0/0. Unit morale 1/1. Those are the pips. What that means is that the unit itself has 0 offensive pips and 0 defensive pips for fire. If he had instead the extra +1 for being a halberd infantry, then every single roll that he's committed to, if he's fighting another unit, he's going to have an extra +1 to that combat phase, as if your general rolled 1 higher. Does that make sense?
All right, I'm clicking out of there because the noise... I turned off the noise last episode because I thought we were done fighting for a minute, but I might have to turn it off again because it's really hard to hear that in both. So, okay, it is clear in terms of what the modifier does. I'm still not clear on what the offensive versus defensive does in this situation. So in this, you're saying it's independent of whether or not we're attacking or defending, if we're the aggressor or attacker. So this is inside the combat phases itself. They have a round of shooting us and we have a round of shooting them or something?
Exactly.
Okay.
Every single day that goes by, you are both the aggressor and the defender, right? Our centermost infantry is fighting against another infantry. And in this circumstance, it's Latin medieval infantry versus Latin medieval infantry, so there is no disparity between their pips. But what if we were using halberd infantry and he wasn't? Right. And that means we would have 1 extra shock modifier and he wouldn't. So our units...
Yeah, but only on the defense there.
No, every shock phase, we would have +1 shock value against his rolls. But
I need to do 2 things here then. First of all, I need to go turn off the game sounds for this again because it's too annoying to hear anything can do that. So let me go do that again so I can select this and look at these again. I thought I was following it now. I'm concerned I'm not. Okay, so looking at these, can I simultaneously have that open and have the F1? No, I can't.
No.
That's too bad because I'd like to compare them. So if I look at the Latin medieval infantry, we're looking over here, offensive morale and defensive morale with offensive and defensive shock for that phase, right? Let's just concentrate on the shock phase for just a second here. So, and is that the one the halberd infantry has a difference on? Yes. It is. So, okay. So when they're matched, so if a Latin medieval infantry is matched up against a halberd infantry here, each time the shock phase comes up.
Yep. You're on the right track.
The halberd infantry are going to have. Okay, but this is where the defensive and offensive makes no sense to me, because that phase, I'm mentally imagining this as a simultaneous phase. The shock phase is, okay, here's the shock phase. The shock phase, these units butt heads. There's a result. But you're saying the way this is worded with offensive and defensive suggests that in the shock phase, there's actually 2 like mini rounds inside the shock phase. Is that correct?
No. What that's saying is that in the shock phase, if I am attacking, I get +1 to my shock pip. If I am defending in the shock phase, like something else is attacking me, then I don't get any modifiers, and I'm just going to take whatever the actual rolls were. So a Latin medieval infantry being attacked by a halberd infantry is going to have a -1 shock relative to him, right? So it's as if you rolled 1 dice roll higher for that specific infantry versus that specific infantry.
So they're each rolling against the other then on the same part of this phase.
Yes.
So in other words, the halberd infantry are going to do more damage here for the same dice roll across when attacking into a Latin medieval infantry.
Correct. And one thing to notice here is that if you look at the actual units, the total number of pips for each tier. Notice how we've got 2 units to choose from that are both require military tech level 1?
Yes.
The total number of pips is equivalent. We've got 2 pips for the Latin medieval infantry and 2 pips for the halberd infantry. You're just choosing how you want to allocate them. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you're basically saying at this tier of military, they're equal in power, but it's just distributed differently in terms of what they do. But I'm not sure I understand then what the difference between these are. So if the Latin medieval has 1 defensive morale and 1 offensive morale, right? So
we would.
And this is on the. Sorry, go on.
If we made the decision to use halberd infantry instead of the Latin medieval, what we would be making the decision based on is that we want to deal more physical death, kill more actual units, because our actual shock value would be higher at the cost of receiving more morale damage ourselves, because we would have 1 less defensive morale pip.
Okay.
So we would want to.
That's the comparison I wanted to hear.
Yeah, we would kill more, but this would work out well in our current circumstance because we have high morale.
Yeah.
We can afford to take some extra morale damage because we don't really care. We still have more morale than most other nations because of what we have in advisors and prestige.
Okay. So that actually might be an investment worthwhile for us.
Yes. Now the risk in doing that, and actually this is I'm just glad you said that, because it's a very easy thing to get confused by. You said training new units. We don't have to train new units. If you clicked on halberd infantry right now, please don't do this. If you clicked on it right now, our troops would instantly all turn to halberd infantry. All of them. There is no mixing and matching. It's one or the other. And when you do that,
existing troops become halberd infantry.
Yes. And when you do that, because they are a new unit type, they instantly drop to no morale, and they have to recover their morale. So do not do this while you're in combat.
Okay. So we should have done this before we. And what's the recovery time of morale? It's the same as it would be otherwise.
So. I think 4 or 5 months probably.
So before we went to war, we should have done this, in other words.
Yeah, we could have. It's not a big deal either way, but just explaining the mechanics. We probably went a little bit too deep for a tutorial campaign.
Yeah, we
did.
But no, I'm glad, because I want to know
interesting to know how that works out. And now here's where it actually might become more interesting to you. Go back to the military screen and look at Latin Knights, for example.
Okay.
When we were comparing infantry to infantry, I can see why it's like, well, I don't really understand what the difference is. It doesn't make any sense. But now it might make more sense to you. Like, if we have the Latin medieval knights, the Latin knights, these guys do have 3 pips instead of the infantry with just 2. So even though in our dice rolls and our generals, like say our generals are equal, and I might roll a 5 on my phase and you might roll a 5, you would say, well, our units are equal. Yeah, but not really, because if I have a lot of cavalry and my cavalry all have 3 pips by default and your guys only have 2 pips because you're using pure infantry, then I'm actually at an advantage. That's not very clear because it's hidden within the tooltip of every individual unit. And this also shows where cavalry are going to do a crazy amount of damage because they got the offensive shock value, and they also inflict good morale damage. So.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting.
So let's let this
resolve this fight.
Yeah, let's resolve. Let's see how we rolled a 0, by the way. I'm not too happy with Wallace. There we go. Oh, it's beautiful. 7 minus a 1, so we get a 6 versus a 0. If you ever want to, you can go on the wiki and you can actually look up. You can calculate out exactly how many units you're going to kill. But basically, that's really, really good. We did a very high roll. They rolled very, very poorly, which means if you look at the numbers above our 2 armies in the next day, you're going to see how many troops died. I've asked for this before, and I don't understand why it's not here. There's no interface where you can see previous day's troop death. Like, you have to actually look at the damn thing as it scrolls up before it disappears. But just look at it. Be in position to look at the numbers. They're going to lose a lot more than we do, basically.
All right, I'm ready.
559, and we lost how many?
I didn't see a number come out of us.
We lost 79 to their 560.
I thought that was 9. I thought that just popped up.
So we're
79.
Okay, now we have a new phase. Now we actually reversed it. We rolled a 0, -1 versus their 7. But we're in the fire phase.
Rolls.
The little dice. Select the army.
Yeah, okay.
Wallace Randolph,
Yep,
0, -1, and then against him he's got a 7. So he rolled better than we did.
0 on a dice. Did we roll a 1 and it got modified -1?
No, I don't know why. I've asked that question before myself. Why isn't it 1 to 10, for example, instead of 0 to 9? I don't know, because 0s is a number you can get, apparently.
Okay.
In the siege interface,
die rolls 0 to 0 to 9.
In the siege interface you roll 1 to 14, but in this interface you roll 0 to 9. Who knows? It's Paradox Interactive. They do what they do.
All right. Okay.
So we rolled much poorer here, but the shock phase is far more valuable at this stage of the game, so this is actually totally fine. We care more about our rolls in the shock. And we just ended the battle, and we stack wiped them. Another war, another army down.
Chancellor reports the Trade League disbanded. The Trade League of Ragusa has disbanded. There's not enough members after Albania left. I don't care, I don't think. Okay, there's the pop-up for the battle finishing.
Yep.
And... Alright, so we lost 842 infantry and no cavalry. That's weird. Why did we lose no cavalry?
Because they flanked. They were not directly engaged by any one unit. They deployed to the sides of the infantry. So
because we had a larger army, they just never received any incoming.
Which is one of the reasons why cavalry are incredibly powerful, is that they're almost always at full strength. They inflict crap tons of damage, and
that's another thing, strong. I guess, is that you'd be making the decision of when you're marching an army towards a known entity. If you're much larger than them, you may wish to focus on like entirely offensive stats for your like out your massively outlying units, like your flanking units like that.
Yeah. Part of the drawback, of course, though, is that cavalry do cost 2.5 times as much as infantry. They're very expensive.
Okay.
So you don't want to have too many.
So I'm going to hit OK on this.
Yeah,
that's good. I'm going to turn the sounds back on so I can get like beeping notifications when I do things wrong. So I like that.
Here's what I'm going to do real quick, just to speed things up. I'm going to go ahead and grab our army. I'm going to detach. I'm going to take the cavalry out, because cavalry are more expensive. They cost more to reinforce, so we don't want to suffer any attrition with them. Ideally, we want to suffer...
Put them to sleep?
You cannot, amazingly, you cannot put them to sleep, as you call it.
You can't mothball them
No, you can't mothball armies. That'd be crazy.
No, but we were doing it earlier. We pay them off. Oh, I mean, power down their morale, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You can't do it on individual armies. It's a global setting.
Oh, weird. Okay.
You can mothball individual navies, but you cannot mothball individual armies.
Oh, God. Give them enough with the just random stuff.
Yeah. So we're going to pull most of our troops off of this siege so we suffer less attrition. We're also going to take the leader off because he has no siege pips. He's not going to help the siege at all. And being in charge of a siege increases his chance of dying. So there's no point in him being there. Beyond that, one last thing we probably want to do here then is we're going to grab our navy. We're going to press the D key. You can go ahead and do that.
You think when I press the D key?
Grab the navy and press the D key.
Where's our navy? Up north. Got it. Okay, D.
Yep, so you've just detached a blockade. So it's left behind just enough troops to blockade that province. Okay. Let's send the remaining ships down to the St. George's Channel to blockade Leinster.
Yep.
And get that siege going as well.
Okay.
There's only one troop here. There's one ship. Our 4 ships are going to be perfectly capable of beating his 1 ship. There's 3 ships down there, so we'd rather have the majority of the navy down in St. George's Channel.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, so we're going to establish that blockade. And this is where you're going to have to decide how much do you want to punish Leinster for the gall that they had to actually honor a defensive call and defend Tyrone.
I want to know, oh, by the way, we just got a pop-up from the siege that said status quo. What does that mean?
That basically means if, again, you hover over the negative 42%, that means we rolled less than 5. We didn't roll a disease outbreak. You can actually see we rolled a 3.
So it's an update on the status of the siege in real time.
Yeah, status quo means nothing's changed. You know.
Yep. I know what the word status quo meant. I just meant in this game. What does this mean for us? Okay. So asking about how much do we wish to punish Leinster? What are my options for punishing?
Well, we could piece them out early and just try to make our war faster. We could take their land even though we don't have a claim on it. We could just be a jerk and make them another alliance with England. It depends on how we want to interact with them. Like, they are not...
what are the penalties for just taking their land now? Is it going to be the same as if we had declared war on an area without CB?
Because this is not a province that we have a claim to, and we did not declare this country to be a co-belligerent, meaning we intended to attack them as well, we would end up paying extra diplomatic points to take land that we did not say we were going to go for.
Okay.
The formula there is it's 3 diplo points for every 1 development. So he's got a 10 development province. It would cost us 30 diplo points to take the land in this war, versus if we were to, say, fabricate a claim on him and declare a second war, another war in the future, we would pay 0 diplo points because that was the justification for the war. So most of the time, you probably are going to be better off just like taking what you can get. And we might just take that land as well, because we don't want England to ally him. Like, he's already allied to him. We don't want England to vassalize him. We'll probably just take this province as well. But we'll see. We'll leave it up to you, I think. So for now,
I like the idea of stealing the land.
yeah, we got to grow. Scottish pride, right?
That's correct.
So let's go ahead and go back to speed 3. Let's see if we can get some progress on our sieges here.
And my assumption is that once we have this land, the land will become productive for us, which will give us a better...
Yeah, so we just got double supply shortage, so our statuses have both gone up by 1. Paradox loves using negative % chances, which make no sense to me personally, but you see on the provinces we have a negative 35%.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It means we have a negative 35% chance to succeed in the siege.
What?
Yeah, I know.
What does that mean?
That means that you can't succeed in the siege. It's negative. It should say 0, but technically 0 is not as indicative. It's not as clear as a negative, because it's actually saying, like, you basically need like 5 or 6 or something, 5 more siege progress status before you're actually going to have any chance to succeed in the siege.
Is there from this part of the menu, so this zoomed out where I'm not clicked on either of the armies, is there somewhere I can see the total progress in terms of like percentage? Like if we have to get, I think it was 12, was that right? For the siege, like number of siege.
Hover,
yeah, but where do I see that?
Click on any of the 2 provinces we're sieging, hover over where it says the negative 35%.
Yeah.
And you can see there right now, we need a 20 to succeed in the siege, and there's a 0% chance we can get it. The only way we're going to get there is as we accrue more siege status that gets added to each roll.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure I see the... So okay, I have Tyrone selected right now, and I can hover over, and when I do that, it brings me to the Siege of Tyrone pop-up. And then when I hover over the minus 35 in there, you're saying?
Yep. Those are your chances of actually having anything of impact.
I see. Yeah, that's not quite that. You answered a question I wasn't quite asking, which was without having to select either of those armies, with just like the overview here, can I see the status on that siege? And it looks like probably not.
Yes, really. In the outliner.
The outliner.
Top right corner, there's now 2 sieges.
Got it.
Negative 35.
That gives me the same information. Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yep, and you can hover over those. Yep, the outliner is your friend.
Yeah, it looks like.
Now we can play greedy here.
Okay.
We are suffering 1% attrition each month due to the siege. Right? That's just an attrition effect you get for doing a hostile siege.
Sure.
We are in hostile territory. Grab the army in Leinster or Tyrone. Just pick one.
Yeah.
Okay. Which one did you choose?
Leinster.
Okay. You're hovering over that. At the top center, you can see there's a little skull thing next to where that loot indicator was. It's actually, we're suffering 3% attrition right now because it's winter time, so that sucks. Okay. So that means that every single regiment's going to lose 30 troops, 3% of 1,000.
Okay.
That's going to happen on every monthly tick, on the first of every month. Okay. Our siege ticks are also about 30 days long, so once a month we also get our recovery tick. Since we have enough manpower to recover troops, in that tooltip, you see where it says maximum 5% in this location. If enough manpower is in the country, this army will reinforce with 200 men each month at this location. The reinforcement rate is 50% in this province, and we get a bonus of 0% from our nation's values.
Yep.
Let's just briefly talk about this math. We're going way over on this episode, by the way, but we've got to cover this because this is the last episode of the week for us. Okay. When you are in non-controlled territory, meaning land that you don't personally own yourself, not your vassals, not your personal unions, not occupied provinces, only land that you personally own as your own real true land, will you recover at 100% by default.
Okay.
Again, 100% is 10% of your troops per month. Okay. Which would be 100 men each in each army, each regiment.
Okay.
If you're in any other province, it goes down to 50%. So we're only able to recover 50%. Yet, if you have a general in charge of the army, and that general has maneuver value, each maneuver pip increases the amount by 10%. So our 5 maneuver general could actually allow us to recover at 100% of normal in enemy territory.
Right.
So it's pretty powerful. It does not allow him to recover at 150% in your own land. It just mitigates the penalty for being in hostile territory.
Okay.
The reason I'm mentioning all this is that normal recovery would be 100 men. We're cut in half down to 50. We're suffering 30 troops per month in attrition, which means that we're able to gain 20 men per month at our current full maintenance value. So long story short, we can afford right now, if you want to play greedy, to lower our army maintenance a little bit and still maintain our sieges while not paying our troops full price.
That sounds like a greedy play that I like.
Yeah. So roughly then, because we are suffering 3% attrition right now, we could go down to about 60% maintenance and still afford to get 3% men back each month. This would not counteract disease outbreaks, but also when it's not winter, we're only suffering 1% attrition, so we could be at 20% of normal maintenance. If you slide the scale, if you're at 20% maintenance, you recover 20% of the normal amount of troops.
Okay.
So let's just go down to like, say 60%, like somewhere in this vicinity, like right around there. Now we're going to get a new red alert saying, you shouldn't do that, it's dangerous. You're at 56% maintenance right now. Whatever.
Okay, where are you seeing the actual number for that?
If you hover over the alert that just popped down, it says 56. Why it doesn't say 56 on the actual army slider, I don't know.
Sliding bar would be nice, yeah, okay. Oh, no.
I just bumped it up, so we're actually at 60%. Each click
Perfect.
is 1%. Also, we have a checkbox. One last thing. Press F1, then the command key.
Okay.
We have this little checkbox in the bottom left-hand corner that says automatically raise maintenance during war.
Yeah,
I'm gonna uncheck that. When we declared war, our fort got turned on by default. We don't need it. So let's turn.
Mothball that.
Yeah, mothball that. Save the half ducat a month. So now we're trying to save money here. Navarre just became a vassal of France. We've had some pretty crap rolls here. Multiple status quos with our sieges.
That's okay.
Got a food shortage. Looks like Leinster's falling a little bit quicker. Let's go up to speed 4. I'd love to get like one of these sieges done, but then again,
maybe that would be good for the start of next episode.
Yeah, we should call it here. We're already at 36 minutes.
So like basically a double episode.
All right, well, hope you guys enjoyed the extra long episode. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.
You bet.